name's Dan, and this video is one that just wraps up a short series of videos that I'm doing on what I call the essential blueprints in Unreal. Previously in this series, we've looked at the level blueprint. We've looked at the player controller. We've looked at the game modes and the game instance blueprints, and I just want to have a quick look at some of the other things that you might see in the game mode or under the game mode stuff. So there are two ways of accessing this information. So one is when you go into here, the project settings, and the other is doing it through the interface for a mode. I just want to quickly say, actually, before I go in and look at these, that this is a fairly standard third-person template map that I've got, which I've made some changes to. I've got two versions. So if you've been following along the videos, you know what's been going on here. But in this video, I'm not going to make any changes at all. I'm just going to talk about some of the stuff that's here. And at times, I'm going to be quite vague as well. So I'm going to zoom in, and then we'll do this again and look at the project settings, and we're going to go to maps and modes, which is kind of the standard place to look at these things. We've talked about game mode already, so this is where you plug in which is the default game mode to be used by the game in all levels. You can override it at a level basis, and most of the other things are here inside the selected game mode, so they can be set by setting the game mode. They're kind of subservient to it. We've got the default pawn class, so we have seen that in action. Well, we had to change it when we created our own game mode, but that's the avatar that the player controller will by default inhabit. There's a HUD class. So HUD is to do with on-screen stuff while you're playing. You probably know that if you're a game player. And I'm guessing most people who are here are game players. It's short for heads-up display, and it gives you things like, typically your health, or how much ammo you've got left, or maybe a mini-map and things like that. There are actually two ways of doing interface stuff like this in Unreal. One is you've got to use a HUD class, and the other is to use what's called the UMG, Unreal Motion Graphics. And the Unreal Motion Graphics are more versatile, but a little bit more complicated to get into. I am not, in my suite of Unreal 5 videos, planning to do actually anything about the HUD class, because it's being slowly deprecated, and so we will be doing Unreal Motion Graphics in a later series. There's the player controller class, which we have examined in a previous video, and which mediates the control. There's these two, the game state class and the player state class. Now, I've done a little bit of reading on these. These are classes that are to do with multiplayer gaming, and they're to be held on the server. And so the game state class holds obviously the state of the game and what's going on. The player state class holds the state of individual players, but it does that in the server in such a way that other processing in the server can access them, because the player controller is not accessible in the server. And then finally here we've got the spectator class, which is, again, it's a pawn, and this is a setup for people who are not actually playing a game but are observing the game in some way, and allowing them some kind of presence in the world. There's some advanced stuff here, so I won't talk about the advanced things. Actually here, nothing to do with what I call the essential blueprints, is you can set which level is loaded when you start up the editor, so the default one that you'll see, and which level is the default one to start with when you start playing the game. And these aren't the same thing. There's some stuff about local multiplayer. Again, that's not essential blueprints. And then there's the game instance down at the bottom. The other thing we're going to do is, that's pretty much it, but I'm going to quickly go and look at the details as they are inside a mode blueprint, game mode blueprint. And you'll see that these are pretty much the same, but there are some more here. Now, what I don't know is why there are more available here than there are in the settings interface. So there's a game session class. Again, this is to do with stuff on a server. It's about the current session of the game that's been playing. We've had the game state class, the player control class, the player state class, the HUD class, the default pawn class, the spectator class, and then there's a couple more here. There's a replay spectator playoff. Replay spectator player controller. I presume that's to do with, doing instant replays, I'm guessing. Don't actually know. And a server stat replicator class, and I dug into that and I still didn't really understand what it is. It's something to do with getting some information from the server and having it at the client side so that it's accessible. So, as I promised, I've been vague on some things here. I have explained some of the things. The ones that I have used in Anger are the controller, the HUD, the pawn here, and then the game instance, which is not available through the game mode, and the game mode, of course. So that wraps up this series of videos that I'm doing on what I call these essential blueprints, and that's it from me for now.